Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Sheita. Today on the show, Governor Wike becomes beautiful bride as Obi, Tinubu, Atiku seek his support. Also, Ohaneze describes Obi as a national project. And later on the show, federal government borrows 19.3 trillion naira from the CBN in 7 years. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom, the maestro himself, Jide Kolade Ututoju. It's good to see you. BKO.
So good to see you and do this with you, Brian.
Thank you. Now, let's begin with the first issue for this program today. The past few days have been full of intrigues, coupled with suspense and surprises, particularly with the River State governor, first meeting with the APC and then the Labour Party, and of course, his party's presidential candidates successively. Is Governor Wike now a beautiful lady winking in the dark, or is this all about, or is this all for a better Nigeria, as he has claimed?
They are not going to take note of him. They are not going to know that he's there. Because when you wink in the dark, you are wasting your time. Right now, Governor Wike sees himself as someone in a strong position. He is in a position of strength. Everyone knows that he has the capacity to make things happen, to release money for political ends. This is what he has done consistently for the party that a lot of his peers in the PDP have not done. He is credited with supporting the party with funds at a time when others simply didn't think that the party was worth their support. Some of them abandoned the party and simply see the party as a means to an end. And they surface during the electioneering period. Wike has been constant as a chieftain of the PDP, and this is where his strength springs from. People are free to abuse him, call him names and all that, but he has shown dedication to his party, unlike others who felt the need to defect to the APC. He's been consistent as a member of the party, and he has supported the party with funds the way others have not done. So this is where his strength comes from. He has support even beyond his state. So right now, Atiku, as candidate of the PDP, knows that he needs Wike because of the resources at his disposal. So the last thing Atiku wants to see happen is to see Wike oppose him. That is former vice presidential candidate is now the candidate of the Labour Party. Is bad enough for Atiku. So the last thing he wants to see is for Wike to support another candidate against him. So Atiku is doing his best, and Atiku, by going to London to meet with Wike, has underlined his seriousness to resolve the disagreement between him and the man that he defeated in the presidential primary of the APC, the PDP. So at the same time, the APC, seeing what is happening in the PDP, are interested in having Wike come to their side. So at the same time, the Labour Party candidate, also sensing the disagreement between Governor Nyesom Wike and members of his party, also made moves earlier in the year to get Wike on his side. He also met him in London. So Wike looks like a beautiful political bride at this time. And anyone who has Wike on his side knows that he has capacity on his side, knows that he has tremendous support on his side. The truth is, Wike cannot be brushed aside as a politician. It's a politician who is tested, he has the resources, and he has support base. These things are very important. He's shown that he could win elections in the state. He's shown that he could draw the support of people. He's in charge in his state. So if you have that kind of person on your side, it's a massive asset. And everyone knows that River State, the people usually vote even in excess of 1 million on election day. So if you have 1 million votes added to your votes, it's an asset. No one can simply discountenance the power and influence of Wike in Nigerian politics today. So, and he has some PDP governors on his side.
Absolutely.
So it makes it all the more difficult, and it makes it inevitable for an Atiku to speak with him. And that is why Wike and his members of his group are giving Atiku conditions for them to support him in his presidential project. So they are saying, look, promise us that you are going to do one term, and don't just promise us, put it in writing. Let us see it in black and white that you are going to do only one term.
Absolutely.
Apart from that, the NWC of the PDP, in their view, is skewed in favor of the North. So let's have that list of NWC members rejigged, so that the overwhelming advantage of the North can be reduced. And of course, promises that they are going to allow the Wike group to produce national
for the party.
leaders. I mean, leaders of in the National Assembly. That is presiding officers in the National Assembly in case they form the government. And of course, they also want to be given the right to nominate a DG for the Atiku campaign.
Absolutely.
So there are all kinds of conditions that they want. And let's not forget, they want Ayu to resign. And Ayu, in their view, should resign, while the deputy national chairman not should also resign. The reason they want the deputy national chairman not to resign is because by the constitution, when Ayu resigns, it is the deputy national chairman not that should step in. So if the deputy national chairman not steps in, it means that the resignation of Ayu has amounted to nothing because another Northerner will have taken his position. So they want these issues resolved and resolved in their own favor. And Atiku is saying, give me some time, let me address these issues. Give me 2 weeks, let me address this issue. So I think that ultimately they will be able to resolve these issues. I think also that some mistakes were made,
Yeah.
and
They need to
Atiku is
right the
trying to
wrongs.
address those mistakes. For example, by telling his own supporters that they should stop abusing Wike, because when you have people like former governor Babangida attacking Wike, people like Lamido attacking Wike, they are making matters worse. So he is telling them, no, stop these attacks. These attacks are not in our best interest at this time. So we are seeing signs that Atiku is trying to do his best to get Wike on his side, and he's trying to use some of Wike's best friends, like the governor of Adamawa State. He's a very good friend of Nyesom Wike. Atiku has sent the governor to him, and Atiku is confident that they will be able to resolve these issues and make it.
Yeah, BKO, looking at former President Olusegun Obasanjo, he shocked many with his open association with the pro-Obi lobby. Two questions I would like to roll into one. First, does this make it difficult for those power brokers traditionally opposed to Obasanjo, including people like General Theophilus Danjuma, to associate with Obi? And two, does it look like the campaign by Obi and Obasanjo to get Wike and his group into the obedient crowd may have suffered with a Thursday dinner between Atiku and the four governors, looking at the fact that they came out smiling?
See, politics is a very interesting game. The fact that you saw Obasanjo with Obi is not evidence that Obasanjo will go ahead and openly campaign for Peter Obi. Obasanjo has said that he has resigned or retired from partisan politics. So he's going to try to play the role of a father figure. He's not going to show his support openly. He's not going to come out and say, you have to vote for this individual. Every serious person who wants to win presidential election will naturally reach out to Obasanjo and try to get him to, to give him his support. But at this stage, with the elections still several months away, it's difficult to say that this is the person that Obasanjo will support. Those who go to him, he receives them warmly, like a good father. But those are not guarantees that they are the people that he will support in the final analysis. You know, so this is the thing. Obasanjo will try his best not to show his hand so early. The election is still a long time from now. I have no evidence that Theophilus Danjuma or anybody for that matter is supporting Peter Obi. I have no evidence, and I can't be talking about something that I have no evidence of. I don't believe in rumor mongering or some of the things that I see on social media. Politics in Nigeria is a complex game, and you need to speak to the characters involved rather than simply conclude based on what the pictures we see on social media and all that. As I said last week, Obasanjo didn't tell people to vote for Tinubu, and he never said publicly that, look, because you visited me, I'm going to support you. He's just trying to stay in the middle, at least up to this time. Maybe in the fullness of time, go for Tinubu or go for Obi or even Kwankwaso. Time will tell. But for now, he has not declared support for anyone. Anyone going around saying that Obasanjo is supporting him. He's it's not to be taken seriously because there's no real signs to that effect.
Right. Okay, let's quickly change tack, and we'll definitely take some of the comments we'll have on the we already have on our comment section on the YouTube channel. Our second topic, which borders on Obi being referred to as the Ohaneze, describing Peter Obi as a national project. The National Publicity Secretary of the organization, Alex Ogbonaya, said, and I quote, "We are still insisting on Igbo presidency. We, the Igbo, are so happy. We brought out our goods in the market and Nigerians brought them. What else do you expect us to do? We are happy. All Igbo are happy." So based on what the group says, would you exactly describe Peter Obi as a national project or an Igbo project?
So it's neither an Igbo project nor a national project in my view. It's just a politician seeking to become the president of his country. It's a politician that a lot of our young people appear to be comfortable with him. They think that he's more decent than many of the politicians that they see around, and many of the politicians that have been privileged to run our country, to run our states. So they believe in him. A lot of young people believe in him. A lot of people want change, who think that Nigeria is ripe for change, believe in Peter Obi. They just think that he's a more decent person um, than others. That's the way they see him. They don't see him as greedy. They don't see him as someone who get into office and begin to amass wealth. This is their understanding of who Obi is. Whether he has capacity to deliver across the board, to solve our major problems, including security, the need to improve our security, the need to reflate our economy, whether it can solve those problems, we can only know in the fullness of time. But the people who are supporting him, they see him more or less like a Puritan, someone who will not steal our money, and the bulk of their support is for this reason. It's for this reason. If you ask them, this is what they will tell you. Oh, this person is decent. We think it's a big departure from the kind of politicians that we have had over the years. And to a large extent, he is spreading his tentacles in the states of the South. South, Southeast, and some parts of the Southwest, especially Lagos. He's spreading the tentacles, getting more and more support. But the truth is, in the North Central, in the Northwest, in the Northeast, he is not doing well as much as we can see him spreading his message in the Southwest, for example. So before Obi will become someone that commands national acclaim, someone that can win an election across our country, he has a lot more work to do beyond the areas where he's already strong. And I've talked about those areas already. South, South, um, Southeast, and to an extent, Lagos State. So I don't see him as a national project. What the Ohanese leader is saying, the public secretary is saying is, look, initially he came across as the candidate of the Igbos, but today he's been accepted by other people who are not Igbos, which means he has become a national project. That is because he now sees him as someone who is no longer a candidate that you can describe as a candidate of the Igbos. He sees him as a national project. But it takes a lot more to be a national project. This is my own view. I see him for who he is. He's a candidate who wants to win, but it's not a national project yet. I think that in the fullness of time, it will be clear to Nigerians who is likely to win this election. It's still early days.
Yeah.
But as I've said earlier, Peter Obi has to work harder in the north, because even in some states of the far north, Peter Obi is literally non-existent. And I just returned from Kasida, Kano, about 1.5 weeks ago. So I know what I'm talking about. And I'm going back next week. So I will be able to assess the level of his acceptance in some parts of the north. But fair enough, he's doing well in many states of the south, and that should really give some of his rivals some concern, because they too want to win in the states of the south. But with a strong candidate like Peter Obi doing very well in the southeast, doing well in the south-south, and gaining some traction, especially in Lagos State, in the southwest, that should be that should stir some concern among his rivals.
Right. Let me quickly take one or two comments before we go to our last topic. Fabian Akeze has been dropping lots of comments here, and he's been also receiving some reactions. And I'll try to see if I can take one or two so that you can react to them simultaneously. Fabian Akeze says, Pat Utomi called Peter Obi being the flag bearer of the Labour Party a revolution, but Peter Obi is chasing Wike across the globe and not the other way around. What a big joke. And I think he got a response from someone. I'm trying to look for the response. Michael Daniel says, Obi is not chasing Wike. Instead, Peter Obi is trying to convince him on a better nation Nigeria will be when the right leader is elected, which he is the right leader. How do you help these guys?
Clearly, Obi knows that Wike is someone of value. He knows that Wike can help him to win Rivers State if he can convince Wike. And that was why very early, after he became the candidate of the Labour Party, he went to see Nyesom Wike. He too was trying to feast on the crisis that came with the presidential primaries of the PDP. So as I said, it's just a politician who wants to win and is doing his best to get power people to support him. And whether we like it or not, Wike is one of the power people in our country. So Obasanjo is also one. So it's He's talking to people, he's taking his message to them, hoping that they will settle for him and help him to win the election. It's just as simple as that.
Let's change tack very quickly by going to our very last topic. We understand now that the federal government's borrowing from the Central Bank of Nigeria has in recent years ballooned by 19.26 trillion naira in 7 years. That's over 25 times higher than what it was like in 2015. What's the implication of this on the economy?
You see, the World Bank has warned Nigeria repeatedly to stop taking loans from the CBN. This idea of taking loans from the CBN is called ways and means, but is actually a strategy by the government to along the line of deficit financing. What the CBN Act says, the CBN Act does not criminalize lending money to the government. The CBN is the lender of last resort. So across the world, the Apex Bank lends money to government. But the CBN Act says that what you are lending should not exceed 5% of your revenue for the previous year. We've seen a situation in which we took a loan from the CBN that amounted to 80%. So how do you simply gloss over this? The real reason for this whole thing is the fact that revenue is stagnant. We have a country currently where the debt to revenue ratio is negative. When people talk about debt to GDP ratio, I always tell them that, look, you should be talking about debt to revenue, because it is your revenue, your capacity to bring in revenue that will justify this borrowing, this reckless borrowing that we are seeing. But a situation in which you keep borrowing from the CBN, and even debt repayment, despite the fact that the loans taken from CBN attract 7% interest rate per annum. What we paid back still accounted for 20% of our total debt repayment stock for the previous year. That should tell you that a lot of the debt that we pay back are actually even from the CBN. We can't continue to use the CBN to help us clear our fiscal mess. The CBN has to assert its independence by following its rules. And it is clear in its rule books that what it is lending to government must not exceed 5% of the total revenue of the government for the previous year. But even that one is constantly being brushed aside. At the time this government came in, that was in 1999, debt to the CBN, debt owed the CBN was just a little over 600, I think 648 billion. Today, that was in 2015, when this government came in 2015, debts to the CBN by the federal government amounted to 648.26 billion. By the December of that year, it had jumped to 856.33 billion naira. Today, it stands at 19.26 trillion. So from 648 billion naira that it inherited, debt holds the CBN in 7 years has climbed up to 19.26 trillion. 19.26 trillion from 648 billion. So you can see that we've been taking loans from the CPN, from the Apex Bank. There are implications for this. All of these loans, all of this injection of capital into the economy that is not based on any form of productivity. Economists warn that they have the capacity to worsen the inflationary rate. They can also cause the value of our currency to go down. That's the reason the World Bank keeps telling us, look, stop these loans that you are taking from the CBN and then calling it ways and means. We are paying salaries with loans that we take from the CBN. We have now reached a point in which, as a country, debt repayment is higher than the revenue that is coming to government. So it means that ultimately we could even find ourselves, because you must pay these debts. These are statutory, the payment of these debts are statutory. So it means that we'll get to a point when we could even be taking loans to pay our debts. We are in a serious financial, economic problem. We are reluctant to admit it. We see people trying to justify borrowing money up and there and saying as long as it is tied to infrastructure and all that, but we're already borrowing more than necessary. If your capacity to pay back is under threat because your revenue is lower than what you are spending on debt servicing, then it's something to be worried about. So people saying, oh, that because we are building infrastructure here and there, then it is justified to continue to take loans. They don't know, they don't realize that for every loan that you take, you've got to pay back. And these loans are largely denominated in foreign currency. So it's like we are postponing the evil day. The economy is on a cliff. We've got to do our best to improve production in our country so that we can earn more foreign exchange. We've got to do our best to expand the tax base so that FRS and the rest of them can earn more revenue that will enable us to take care of our needs, including but not limited to infrastructure development. We can't continue to take loans at the rate we are going, including even the loans we are taking from the CBN. So the World Bank that is warning us that we shouldn't be funding our fiscal deficit with these loans from the CBN, they know what they are talking about. You've got to stop. In 7 years, this debt that we are owing the CBN rose from 648 billion to 19.26 trillion. Something is wrong. Something is really wrong. Something is really wrong. Even the loans, even the debt that we owe Nigerian banks.
Yeah.
In the last few years, the debt that we owe Nigerian banks have also gone up. Instead of addressing the big problem of revenue stagnation, we think that the solution is to simply be borrowing money up and down. We've got to find a way to generate more revenue. When we generate more revenue, we won't be borrowing money the way we are borrowing money. We'll be able to use what is generated for infrastructure, for other needs. We can't continue to spend, to use loans to pay salaries of workers and all that. And the government is reluctant to trim its recurrent expenditure. Recurrent expenditure is too big because there are too many areas of waste that we have refused to address. A country like Senegal decided that it did not need a bicameral legislature. They decided to scrap their Senate. We are not prepared to do anything close to that here. We see governors flying private jets all over the place to attend meaningless meetings in Abuja. All of these things put so much strain on the budget. And the money that we are talking about, the loans that we are taking from the CBN, are out of our budgetary spendings. We can't come up with budgets every year, budgets that are failing, and then believe that the solution is simply to be borrowing money up and down like somebody possessed. No, it has to stop.
Yeah, because we seem to be out of time. We're actually out of time, and I think we need to call it a wrap. But quickly, I can't but take Fabian's submission again on this particular topic, where he says, I believe PMB should have sacked Godwin Emefiele as governor, as CBN governor, once he joined the APC. The governor has wrecked the economy just to be in the good books of Abuja politicians. We're out of time, but do you feel like responding or saying something to this very, very briefly in less than a minute?
I don't think that the CBN governor has earned his right to remain in office. This is the worst CBN governor I've seen as a Nigerian. This is the worst that I've seen. And he doesn't even appear to realize that he's a failure, because if he realized that he had failed, he won't take the step to contest for the presidency. How can somebody who has failed in the way he has failed be thinking of contesting for the presidency? He came in as CBN governor at a time when the naira exchanged to the dollar at less than 200 naira to a dollar. Yeah. Today, it's in the region of 650, 670. He should be ashamed of himself. He should really be ashamed of himself, because he has failed this nation. Every step that he has taken to address this problem has failed. Every step has failed. But he's hanging on there like the true Nigerian that he is. A true Nigerian, even when it is as apparent as daylight that he has failed, he will still like to remain in office.
Right.
We see in other countries where people believe that they failed their nation, they don't need to be told before they step down. We saw it with Algeria. Algeria, their FA chairman resigned once he saw that he couldn't steer his country to World Cup qualification. In our case here, the NFF chairman was even thinking of contesting for a third term. Although, thank goodness he has changed his mind. But he
All
should
right, we
have
should go.
resigned too because he failed this nation.
All right, we should go. Well, and that's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Baba Jide Kolade, for those insightful analyses, as always, PKO. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do this again next week.
God willing. And thanks to you too, our audience, for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG and also at Ibrahim TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.